6 experiments, all of them used children. None of them asked permission, and every single one found something scientists wish they could unknow. What happens when you let a small child watch an adult hurt something? In 1961, Albert Bandura decided to find out for real. The setup was simple. A child sat in a playroom, in the corner an adult, and between them a large inflatable clown doll named Bobo. At first, nothing. The adult played quietly. Then, without a word of explanation, the adult began to beat the doll, punching it, kicking it, striking it with a hammer. The child just watched. Then came the real experiment. The child was left alone in the room with Bobo. No instructions, no adult, just a camera. The children didn't hesitate. They punched, they kicked. They picked up the same hammer. Some invented new attacks the adult had never shown them. 88% of the children imitated the violence. Months later, many still remembered how. Nobody told them to be cruel. Remember that line. Because by the end of this video, you will see what happens when the experimenter is your own family. But first, Bandura's children copied a stranger. The next scientist wanted to know if you could go further. Not teaching a child violence, installing an emotion directly. In 1920, John Watson took a 9-month-old baby and set out to prove that fear can be manufactured. The baby is known to history as Little Albert. First, Watson showed him a white rat. Albert was delighted. He reached out to pet it. Then Watson stood behind the baby with a steel bar and a hammer. Every time Albert touched the rat, a deafening clang right behind his head. Again and again. Soon, the sight of the rat alone made Albert scream and crawl away so fast he was nearly off the table. But it didn't stop at the rat. The fear spread. A white rabbit, a fur coat, a Santa Claus mask. Anything soft and white now meant terror. Watson proved his theory. Fear can be installed like software. Albert was sent home, still afraid. He was never deconditioned. He died at age 6, and his mother was never told what had been done to him. A stranger installed fear in a baby, one hammer strike at a time. But you don't need a hammer. The next experiment did it to an entire classroom, using nothing but a sentence. The day after Martin Luther King was shot, a teacher in Iowa walked into her 3rd grade class with an announcement. Brown-eyed people, she said, are smarter, better. Blue-eyed people cannot be trusted. The children believed her. Instantly. Within an hour, the brown-eyed kids had turned. They mocked their best friends. One boy suggested the blue-eyed children wear collars so you could spot them from behind. But the disturbing part wasn't the cruelty. The blue-eyed children began to fail. Flashcards they had aced the day before, they now stumbled through. Test scores dropped in a single afternoon. Then Jane Elliott reversed it. Brown eyes bad, blue eyes good. The exact same collapse happened in the other direction, just as fast. She never told them to be cruel. She only told them who mattered. A teacher rewired a classroom in one morning. The next scientist went further. He ran the experiment inside his own house, on his own son. In 1931, psychologist Winthrop Kellogg brought home a baby chimpanzee named Gua. His plan, raise her side by side with his infant son Donald. Same crib, same food, same rules, same love. The question, if you raise an ape as a human child, does it become one? For months, Gua was winning. She learned to respond to commands faster, used a spoon better, walked earlier. But the experiment had a flaw nobody predicted. Apes can't learn to speak, but little boys can learn to bark. At an age when children explode into language, Donald wasn't speaking. He was grunting. Chimp food barks at the sight of his lunch. The experiment was supposed to run for 5 years. The Kellogg's shut it down after 9 months and never fully explained why. The ape hadn't become a boy. The boy was becoming an ape. Kellogg's son had a family to pull him back. The next child had no one. And what happened to her is the closest thing psychology has to an unforgivable case. In 1970, a social worker in California discovered a 13-year-old girl who had spent her entire life strapped to a chair in a locked room. Her father had forbidden anyone to speak to her. She had never heard a conversation, never learned a single word. Scientists called her Genie, and for them, she was a once-in-history opportunity. Can a human being still learn language after the window closes? At first, Miracles. Genie learned hundreds of words. Scientists fought for access to her. She became the most studied child on Earth. But grammar never came. The window had closed. And as the results dried up, so did the funding. And here is the part they don't put in textbooks. When the money ended, the scientists left. The girl they had studied, published on, and built careers on was moved through foster homes where she was abused again and forgot most of her words. Science found her fascinating. Nobody found her worth keeping. Every experiment so far was run by an outsider, a scientist, a teacher, a stranger with a clipboard. The last one is different. Remember the line from the beginning. Nobody told them to be cruel. This time, the experimenters were the parents. And nature ran the control group. What are the odds that 4 identical sisters all lose their minds? 1 in 1.5 billion. It happened once. In the 1930s, the Genain Quadruplets were born. Identical DNA, identical house, identical everything. By their 20s, all 4 had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. To scientists, this was the cleanest answer psychiatry had ever been handed. Madness was genetic. Case closed. The NIH studied the sisters for decades. They even gave them code names: Nora, Iris, Myra, and Hester. Then someone looked closer, and the clean answer fell apart. Same genes, but not the same illness. One sister held a job, married, lived a nearly normal life. One never recovered at all. Identical DNA, opposite fates. Something else was casting the votes. The answer was hidden inside the house. Their father terrorized the girls. He loaded a gun in front of them. And the daughters he watched most closely were the ones who broke most completely. The genes loaded the gun. The house pulled the trigger. 6 experiments, 6 children, and one finding that repeats every time. A child doesn't need instructions. A child needs an example. They were all just copying the adults. That was the experiment. The adults were the variable.